Welcome back, everybody, to Tifosi Confidential, episode 4, I
Yes,
think.
that's right.
The review of the 2025 season. This is the second half. We left off at after the British Grand Prix.
Yes.
Lando Norris won. Oscar's lead has been slashed down to 8 points. We're not yet at the summer break, as they call it. And we're going to see how a charge from Lando and Max, most importantly, liven up a bit the championship for towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, it will be a very it was a very interesting second part of the season, indeed, especially for Oscar, I would say. not in a good way, unfortunately, for him.
But it starts off well. In terms
Very
of-
well, indeed.
We go to Spa for the Belgium Grand Prix, and Oscar has not Lando has pole
Lando's pole
position,
position.
but something very nice happens. First of all, we actually go racing. Whatever.
I mean, like it was 3 years ago, like the worst, probably like the worst page in F1 history. Save for deadly crashes, of course, but like when they did not really race, but they went to the podium, so everybody was satisfied with the champagne, all the. Oh my goodness, that was really bad. But no, this year there was a race. I mean, if you go to Belgium, if you go to Spa, especially in this time of the year, or probably any time in the course of the year, you're gonna find rain. I mean, part of Michael Schumacher's legend was shaped at Spa, and because he did not live too far, he knew how to interpret the movement of the clouds. I mean, this is part of the fascination of racing in a track like Spa-Francorchamps. And but you're right. I think they did 4 laps behind the safety car.
Yes, and with the little help from the sun that actually came out. this time around.
Finally.
Yes, we went racing, and one of the best overtakes of the season, I would say, from Oscar after Eau Rouge, to the detriment of Lando, of course. But that was mostly it. That was it for the whole race in terms of the lead change.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very exciting overtake. One of those that, that happened in the old days. I remember Michael Schumacher actually, being overtaken by Hakkinen back in the late 90s, and everybody actually said, that was like one of the down moments of Michael's career, because everybody said, "Oh, look at this! You cannot be overtaken like this by Hakkinen," but he did. But what Oscar did this time was really that's what this is the stuff drivers are made of. This is the stuff legends will eventually be made of. This kind of overtakes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in modern Formula One, too many overtakes happen because of the pit strategy.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like a goal-less football match. Because there are no goals in Formula One lately. There really are very few overtakes. Strategy is the predominant way of winning races. But thank goodness, sometimes there are drivers who go against this, and that's exactly what Oscar did at Spa this year.
Yeah, and to your point, obviously, the most of the action usually comes at the start or at a safety car restart, like in this case.
Yeah.
Then obviously when you pit and have all the strategy involved. But Spa was actually quite interesting, I'd say. Damp conditions, mixed conditions do bring out more exciting races overall.
I mean, it's no surprise, when you go to a track which is a track, by the way, without being a track, because even today some of the roads, some of the parts of the track are open roads during most of the day. But what I'm saying is, Formula One, and not only Formula One has been racing it on this track, on these roads, on this tarmac for the good part of the last century. This is one of the old tracks, even though today is about half as long as it used to be only 40 years ago, 50 years ago. But it's still a very technical, and it is not dangerous anymore, thank goodness. But it's very technical, it's very demanding, and you need to get to know your stuff in order to prevail.
Yeah. They used to call it the University of Formula One. Was that right?
No, that's one of the nicknames of Spa. That's right. That's right. And it's I mean it's one of those great things that in the Formula One world that has 24 Grand Prix on some very improbable tracks,
Yeah.
like Riyadh or Las Vegas or Miami or Bahrain or whatever, or Qatar. There still are a few of these like real demanding tracks. Unfortunately, Formula One is going to lose one in 2026 because Imola is going to be kicked out of the calendar. But at least we get to keep Spa.
Yeah. We do keep some historics here and there, to keep the spirit alive.
Yeah, I mean, I think we spoke about this the other time around. It's like the Hungaroring.
Yeah.
The Hungaroring, when it was introduced in 1986, was deemed a very boring track with all the turns that looked alike. Today, it's almost like one of the most technical ones.
Yeah. Yeah, which is actually the race we're going to go after. But
Exactly.
let's close a bit the chapter on Spa.
Yeah,
Oscar P1, Lando P2, Charles P3.
yeah.
Another podium for Charles,
I mean,
thankfully.
Charles has been trying to do all that he could, all championship, all campaign through this year, and Spa was really good. But once again, it's like it's one of those tracks where the good driver gets to do good things, even if the car is not necessarily up to it.
Yeah. Max P4. And then we do have a lot of action on track with Lewis, particularly having some nice overtakes here and there, climbing up, ending up in P7. So I'm sure that was invigorating for him.
It was a good. It was
a good race.
It was a good race for Lewis. It was. Many of us thought that this was like the beginning of Lewis Hamilton's season. Unfortunately, it proved not to be the case.
Yeah.
But Spa was really good for Lewis. And once again, Spa is a very difficult and technical and gut requiring track. And drivers with a class of Lewis, come out.
Yeah, indeed. And then moving forward to Hungary, the Hungaroring.
The Hungaroring, yes.
Actually, Charles, pole position.
Well, Ferrari has historically done well in Budapest, yes.
Yes, Charles pole position. And that was kind of the main story of the race. 1 versus 2. This time around it was Charles against the two McLarens, not
Yes.
Max. And he was in the fight for the win, but Ferrari's strategy came in.
Yeah, this is the time that he got really upset, right?
Yes.
Because we have this wonderful way of knowing what these people think and say because of the communication that we get, that every now and then we get to hear on television. This is one of the problems of Formula One today. It almost looks like we always talk about the drivers because they are those who drive the cars. But if you think about it, sometimes they even look like marginal to the teams, almost like accessories to the team, because the strategy comes first. The car is more important than the driver, and the team. I mean, how many sacrifices or presumed sacrifices have been made, even especially by McLaren this year, in the name of team's unity or Papaya rules or whatever they call them. And the same thing applies to Charles, who absolutely knows what he's doing, and sometimes he's being asked to do things that don't reason with him.
Yeah. And then when he has some input, he's not heard. They don't really listen to him.
Yeah, which, by the way, in a year where Ferrari does not really perform that well, maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, listening to the drivers could help. But I remember, but this was like 10 years ago, talking to Ivan Capelli, and like Ivan raced in the 80s and in the early 90s, and like in those days, the communication with the pit was not as through as today, So sometimes the drivers could even ignore team orders. I didn't see the flag, I didn't see the sign or whatever. But today it has become ridiculous. And I remember even coming back from a Grand Prix, said like, I spoke to, I don't remember, I think he was talking about Jean Alesi, and Jean was saying like, I told the people that it was raining, and they told me it was not, because it was not raining on the pit lane. But it was raining, and like they messed up some sort. This to say that sometimes team managers and race engineers kind of tend to overlook the fact that there is actually a real human being driving the car, and this is not the case with everybody in Formula One, but most of them know what they're doing. So listen to them, and if they had listened, if the Ferrari pit had listened to Charles in Budapest, maybe the result, he could have gone on the podium, right?
Yeah, and that's what Charles was actually complaining about, is that he was saying like, oh, now the car is undrivable, and it's a miracle if we end up at a podium, which he did.
Not. I think he said something like, you should have listened to me, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's also fair to say that race engineers and all the strategists, they talk numbers and variables, and the only real variables is the driver.
Exactly.
So the driver needs also to comply as much as possible with all the mathematical factors that go into the race.
No, I agree, and of course today you've got all this data. I mean, it's kind of scary to think about it, all the data that they have. But what I'm saying is, but in the end, racing or driving is actually much simpler than they make it. You need to go faster than everybody else without going off the track, without spinning. And those who do it, despite all the data, are the drivers. They know what they're doing, at least most of them.
Most of them.
Yeah. Well, we could have a segment,
Separate episode.
a separate episode when we say those who don't really understand what driving is all about, but that's a different story.
Well, one who definitely does is Max, who unfortunately does end P9.
That's right.
Bad weekend, bad.
It was that part of the season
Yeah.
when Red Bull was actually
still figuring out the car,
yeah.
and
yeah.
it was going to come alive more after the summer break.
Yeah.
Where we go in after Hungary, and we come back actually in Max's home Grand Prix in Zandvoort.
Zandvoort, which is kind of an interesting mix of some of the old parts of these banks.
Yeah.
There are actually even more bank turns than there used to be, and then some. It's actually a shortened track if you think about to the track that we're racing in the 70s and part of the 80s. But well, this is one of the great things that Max brought back to Formula One. This great enthusiasm that led to the organization again, finally, of a Dutch Grand Prix. Yeah. And too bad that they don't call the Tarzan the first, turn one. It used to be called the Tarzan. And actually, there was a great overtake, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was throughout the race.
Okay.
In the start, we have Oscar and Lando in the front row.
Okay.
Max trying to get inside, and he actually does a beautiful overtake, controlling the car in an unbelievable way. And I think
in a Max Verstappen way.
Exactly. One of the commentators said, I don't know, I think it was David Coulthard actually, was like, I don't know if any could have controlled the car, could have caught it back, because that was incredible. And so,
well, thank goodness drivers still make a difference.
So Max goes up to P2 at the start of the race, and then a few laps later, he actually loses that position to what you were saying, a beautiful overtake around the outside by Lando Norris.
Yeah.
To
And anytime you overtake somebody on the outside, especially in a turn like the Tarzan.
Especially Max Verstappen.
By the way, yeah. I mean, it means that you got the stuff.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. You got the guts. and you definitely can control that car.
Yeah. And so that was a very interesting first half, let's say just the first segment of the race.
Yeah.
Because then when we look at what happened, we have Ferrari again, unlucky with the strategy, not because of their fault, but because Lewis crashed.
That's right.
Unfortunately. But it happens. But
Yeah.
yeah. And then, so that's one DNF. And then there's a second DNF
That
for
was-
Charles.
It was when Antonelli
Yeah.
hit him, right?
Yeah. Misjudged the banking and just.
Well,
Had
I
fun.
think Kimi paid the lack of experience. I mean, he had a great season, but of course he's young and that's his first season in Formula One. And Zandvoort, as I said, being a mix of old and new, and we're all, especially with the banked segments, which are, it's very tricky, and he basically fall into the trick, and he hit Charles, and Charles was out. So we had two Ferraris did not
DNF.
finish.
Yes. So we had this year we had two DNFs, or like one race with two DNFs, and one race with two disqualifications as well. So that was
That's
pretty
right.
unique
That was pretty unique. Yeah.
for the record books.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like everybody made such a big deal about the disqualifications. They do happen. People do. I'm not even gonna say they make mistakes. Things happen during a race that may lead to a certain situation for which you get disqualified without having to, be ashamed of anything. Things do happen. in
And the
racing.
margins of error are
Yeah,
so
exactly. I mean, also
small.
the same thing happened to McLaren later in the season.
Vegas,
this, exactly. As you said, the margin is so thin that it really takes nothing to go over it and be disqualified.
Yeah. But the main event of this race is actually a Lando Norris DNF. Not because of his fault, but.
But a
engine
car,
blowout. Yeah.
I mean, we tend
Good old reliability.
we tend to forget that there is such a thing called reliability. The cars are so reliable. They've been so reliable for the last 20 years that a lot of the young people who watch Formula One today don't even realize that back in the 80s, 50% of the cars that started a race had some kind of a mechanical failure for which they did not finish. Today, we know they start in 20, they arrive in 20.
Yeah.
In the old days, it was like 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be honest, I was, it's not that late into the season that this happened, but I did kind of see some similarities with, 2016 when Lewis was charging back up on Nico, and then his engine blew up in Malaysia.
I do not remember that.
So I was starting to think, maybe Oscar, another win, 25 points clean. And after this race, actually, this is the biggest lead of the championship, with Oscar having 34 points.
Well, at this point, it was only for Oscar to lose it, and he eventually would.
Yeah, but let's not spoil it for the audience who hasn't seen the
Our
hasn't seen
audience
the
has-
championship.
Well, I'm sure our audience has watched the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
I agree.
course.
I think so. But the positive note from this race was undoubtedly Isaac Hadjar, P3.
He had a great season.
Yeah.
He had a great season with some good results. One of them being this one.
Rookie season, podium,
yeah.
not bad.
Not bad at all. Also because he was not driving a Mercedes.
Exactly. And he got the promotion to Red Bull for 2026.
That's right. But yeah, that's gonna be interesting because 2026 is, he's capable of doing good things. Of course, at Red Bull in 2026, you are the number 2.
Yeah.
So you need to be good in behaving and understanding that somebody else will get all the attention, and you need to take whatever is left. But being the same thing with Max Verstappen, I think he'd be a great, place for him, for Rajar to learn. It's a good thing for him.
Very good thing. And then Williams slowly picking up, Albon P5, and we have a good potent finish for Aston Martin, which is always good to hear with Fernando and Lance. So not too bad, not too shabby.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Moving on from the Netherlands, we come back home.
To the greatest Grand Prix of all, Monza.
Gran Premio d'Italia.
The worst organization. I went to Monza for the first time in 1975, the year that Niki Lauda won the championship and Claire Gazzoni won the race. And guess what? Monza had problems with bathrooms, restrooms. Okay. And 50 years later, I go to Monza, and Monza still has problems with bathrooms and restrooms.
Is it Italian bureaucracy or?
It's Italian bureaucracy, I think. Yeah. It's certainly not the. I mean, like the people working there, they put the best effort that they can. It's just the bureaucratic. I mean, if you think about it, in the late 70s, Monza lost the organization, the hosting of the Italian Grand Prix, because there were the drivers, especially after, Ronnie Peterson crashed. He died in 1978. The drivers insisted on having a number of trees removed in order to have a greater space outside the track. And the Italian bureaucracy, that had nothing to do with the Monza people. The Italian bureaucracy and political parties said no, 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 to the point that the 1980 Italian Grand Prix was actually hosted was actually raced in Imola. And finally the Lombardy political parties faced with the possibility of really losing the organization of the Italian Grand Prix. They've been organizing the Italian Grand Prix since 1922. Okay, they made those amendments to the tracks, and so that Imola went on to have the San Marino Grand Prix, and the Italian Grand Prix went back to Monza. So anyway,
Was it in the 1980? Was it already San Marino? Was it?
No, San Marino was
Italian?
actually 81. 1980. What happened in 1979? 79 was like the 50th anniversary of the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. That's the day the Scheckter became world champion. Okay, Scheckter Villeneuve won two. That was the 50th anniversary, the 50th Italian Grand Prix. A week later, there was an extra championship race in Imola. Except I think for Ferrari, all teams just sent one car. Okay. By the way, this was a way to repay Enzo Ferrari for all that he had done in diplomacy between the constructors and the federation. Anyway, but it was like a general rehearsal, like a dress rehearsal for 1980. So in 1980, the Italian Grand Prix was raced in Imola, not in Monza. Monza was nothing that year. And then, of course, in a very Italian way, they found a compromise. So Monza went back hosting the Italian Grand Prix, and Imola was granted the San Marino Grand Prix. San Marino is a very tiny republic, old and ancient republic on a hill, a few miles from Imola. So there was this device for which and Italy had two Grand Prix. By the way, two great tracks.
Yeah. And like you said at the beginning, we're losing one.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. But let's hold on to what we have stable in the championship calendar, which is Monza. Max, pole position. This is where he starts to
come back,
cut back the lead, and have a better feeling with the car, optimizing it well. Max, P1. A bit of a quarrel at the start with Lando. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yes, I remember
the
that.
chicane.
Yeah.
And then he had to give the position back, but then took it back with no.
Yeah, this is again.
ways.
This is like it's like the discretion of interpreting the laws, the rules, the regulations on the spur of the moment. Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you give it back. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes nobody cares. Sometimes you get penalized.
Yeah. And so Max dominant win over 20-second lead, which at Monza is pretty unheard of.
In the modern days, yes.
Yes, in the old days, had a couple of laps. Start waving 5 laps from the end.
There was a Grand Prix late '60s I think it was the Nürburgring, and Jackie Stewart won like 7 minutes. And what is interesting is, of course, that in the Nürburgring you did not do the victory lap because it was
Yeah.
like what's 22 kilometers.
Yeah.
So there's a great picture of Jackie Stewart looking out from the pit wall, waiting to see who came in second. Anyway,
Unbelievable. And another great example of the Papaya rules being enforced during this race.
yeah,
Lando was ahead. They were trying to cover up, I think, Leclerc. He had a slow pit stop.
yeah,
And therefore Oscar overtook him.
yeah,
And with, if I'm not mistaken, 5 or 3 laps from the end,
yeah,
they had him swap positions.
yeah. It's this is the. I think we had a sarcastic comment by Max, right?
Yeah, he said,
I think, yeah, 'cause
why are
I-
you switching? Because he had a slow pit stop?
Yeah, I mean, slow pit stops are part of racing, you know.
And that's exactly what Oscar said.
And I think Oscar was right. This is, I mean, I've said this before, you know, all this, you know, political correctness or presumed or perceived political correctness kind of make me sick. And if you think about it, in the end, Max Verstappen did lose the world championship for these 3 points.
Yeah.
That Oscar renouncing himself, you know, giving in to team orders,
Yeah.
and therefore kind of giving the world championship title to his teammate,
Yeah.
actually helped defeat Max Verstappen.
Yeah. Yeah.
This, I mean, this is, I mean, we could debate for a whole night about this. You know, is this really as just as McLaren wants us to think it is? Not necessarily. It's sports. If this is the kind of things that happen,
Yeah.
and I understand Max's frustration, and especially Oscar Piastri's frustration. He was not okay with it, but he actually proved to be a great team player.
Yeah.
We need to say this because he reluctantly, but he obeyed.
Yeah. He obeyed, and even further down the line, in the upcoming races, we've had instances where the race situation was to his detriment, but the team didn't really help him. They didn't really make things.
It makes me think,
in a way.
It makes me think, and I may be mistaken, and I don't want to, of course, say things that don't make any sense.
Well, don't worry, it's confidential here.
It's confidential. It makes me think that the British team did everything to favor the British driver. In a way, it goes back to 2010, when there was a German driver and then supposedly Austrian team, and Ferrari kind of raced after, made the strategy after the Australian, by the way, another Australian now, without thinking that maybe the Austrian team would rather go with the German driver. And the same thing happened here. Another thing you can say is that Oscar is very new to McLaren. He's very new to Formula One, while Lando's been there for a number of years. So we may think that they may have favored him because they're more familiar with him. But certainly, again, there always are at least two sides to any issue. But this giving up, the swapping positions because the pit stop had been long, doesn't really make any sense. It's actually, it's kind of, they wanted us to think it was like sportsmanlike, and probably it's actually against all the laws, written and unwritten, of sports.
Yeah.
Sports also means accepting what happens on the track, on the field, on the
Especially
pitch.
when you have both of them still in the championship fight.
By the way, yes.
It's not like Lando was the only one that could have a shot at the title, like
Correct.
like
Correct.
Ferrari did early 2000s, and they only had Michael. And
Then I understand. Oscar is the junior driver, is the newest one, is the youngest one. So sometimes in your career you have to say yes sir and go on with things you don't like.
yeah,
But this is supposed to be a sport. Everybody's supposed to have an equal chance.
yeah. But moving on to Ferrari, we have P4 and the P6 for Lewis's first race in red at Monza.
Yeah, not the outcome.
They wanted, but still points.
Lewis and the Italian fans, the Italian tifosi wanted, but 2025 was not
Not
a
his
good year for Lewis.
Not his year, but definitely a good year instead for the Kimi, our Italian in the championship, who unfortunately did end P9, but
Yeah.
still 2 points.
Well, Italian fans really don't care much about Italian drivers, with exceptions, of course. The last one of whom probably it was Alberto Ascari, who was world champion in 52 and 53. The Italians, they always go for the car rather than the driver. So if there's an Italian driver that does well, the Italian fans have a tendency to overlook that. They first look what Ferrari did, and then any eventual driver.
But if that driver goes to Ferrari,
That's a different story. That's a different story.
the end of the world.
Exactly.
Moving on from Monza, we go to your favorite Grand Prix,
Baku,
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
Overall, a no-show by Ferrari.
Yeah.
A 4-turn Grand Prix for Oscar, who crashed
So
On the first lap.
early in the game, yes.
first lap. Unbelievable.
Well, drivers, are human beings. They make mistakes. In today's Formula One, they make very few mistakes.
Very few mistakes, and he actually made 2 on that first lap. He had a false start,
Yeah.
so that already cost him all the positions.
Well, he
he
was
had,
exactly.
and that sent him back. And then I guess the erraticness of trying to
He was nervous.
make up everything crashed
Must have
into
been-
the wall.
Yeah, must have been nervous.
Yeah. But lucky for him, Lando only managed to get a P7. And with the 2 McLarens so far back, we had the possibility of some surprises, and we had a lovely one with Carlos Sainz P3.
Yeah. Well, Carlos has a great season. Williams has come a long way in the last 2 years, and Carlos did extremely well. This is not the only race where he performed well, but Carlos is a very solid driver, not only fast, but he's solid. If there's a chance to take it, he takes it,
Yeah.
and that's what he did in Baku.
That's exactly what he did. And to be honest, I'm very happy for him.
Also, am I.
That was beautiful scenes out of Azerbaijan, seeing Carlos celebrating a podium. And
It's a good thing for Williams as well. Again, along with Ferrari and with McLaren, they are one of the most historic teams in Formula One today.
yeah. And then George P2, Kimi P4, and Max Verstappen eats a lovely 25-point chunk out of the lead.
This is the beginning of the. This is not the beginning, but this is like the continuation of his comeback that took him. He came so close to winning the championship, which would have been hilarious if you think about it. From the way McLaren kind of dominated the season.
Yeah. The first half was incredible. You could see them just running away with obviously the constructors' championship, but even the title.
Which they did because they secured the manufacturers world champions so early in the season.
They did actually in the next race
That's right.
in Singapore.
Singapore, one of my least favorite tracks. I hate when they race at night.
I think they schedule these on purpose to get your high hopes up and enjoying a nice Baku Grand Prix, and then straight into Singapore and bring you back to reality. It's not.
But
the Formula
Singapore
One
is
you love.
is one of those tracks that make no sense. Hey, think about it. If Monaco were not to be on the calendar since 1929, it would make no sense to go to Monaco with these cars today. We still go to Monaco because Monaco is Monaco. The Monte Carlo Grand Prix, the Monaco Grand Prix in Monte Carlo has been raced basically since 1929, always been part of the World Championship since 1950. Few people know that actually Ferrari did not debut in the first race in Silverstone, but they debuted in Monte Carlo, which was the second race in the 1950 season. But you know, it's a crazy place. You know, I know they put up great grids. I mean, the safety has been enhanced, but you know, going to on a city track like they did in Las Vegas or even in
Jeddah.
Jeddah really makes no sense. But anyway,
But anyway, we've had this stop on the calendar for a while now. Remember even the Crashgate 2008.
I mean, yeah, Singapore has been there for a long time.
It's been there for a while.
I mean, the 21st century is, yeah.
And
I remember when it was new.
it always reserves some surprises. In Max's most dominant year in 2023, we had the only non-Red Bull win with Carlos Sainz.
That's right. It's always Carlos.
It's always Carlos. He's always there. And this year we have the second win for Mercedes.
George
Russell.
I like Russell because Russell, you know, when the car, you know, is helps him, he's always there.
Yeah.
I like Russell a lot. Yes.
And he's consistent.
He's consistent, and I think, you know, I said this before. You know, Toto Wolff is a guy who knows how to manage a team. You know, he's never loud. He's never, you know, flashy, but he knows his stuff. I think he has learned a lot from Niki.
Yeah. And so Max P2, and then we come to another instance of where the Papaya rules weren't so papaya, but more of a grayish situation. First lap, turn 3, Oscar goes on the inside of Lando goes on the inside of Oscar.
Yeah.
And he tries to avoid Max and crashes into Oscar.
Yeah.
But he doesn't crash like he does in the upcoming races, but he crashed into him, just nudges him out
I
of the way.
think the communications is hilarious, right? Between the McLaren pit and Oscar, right?
Yeah. Oscar was just wondering if the McLarens were good, if they were good with just him getting pushed out of the way by Lando, and McLaren did say, you know, from our side we see that he had to avoid Max and Oscar.
I was gonna say something like but if you, in order to avoid an adversary, another car, you crash into your teammate. That's not really. I think he was very colorful. That's not really a great team strategy. I agree with Oscar. You know, as I said before, you know, Oscar, and again, he's young. He's so he'll learn, and in a way, as an old man, I understand that, you know, age or having seniority is important. You know, it has its place. But I think that Oscar has been really having the worst part of McLaren's decisions this year. You know, because whenever they decided something, it was always in favor of Lando, which I'm fine with, by the way. But say it. Lando is the first driver, or team captain. This is something that nobody talks like this anymore. And Oscar is the second driver.
Yeah. Well, I think next year they don't have those many options of being like they both have they both have a chance because obviously you start the championship with 0 points. But
I'm not so sure because once you become world champion, you are a world champion.
Exactly. So obviously Lando won't even accept it that they're on the same page.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, like, you know, everybody thinks that there's compensation the next year. You know, same thing, you know, Clay Regazzoni in 1974. I think Clay was the only one who really thought that he could have equal chances to Niki Lauda in 1975. You don't. You know, this is like a team sport, but also a very individualistic one. But once you become world champion, you are world champion. So Lando next year will be much, much firm in his standings within a McLaren than he was this year, because this year he was a would-be champion. Next year, and by the way, he chose number one, right?
Yes, thankfully.
Is the incumbent world champion.
Yeah.
So you know he will have the team at his disposal.
Yeah.
And Oscar will get. Well, he'll have to fight.
Have to fight the team
In
as
the
well.
team first.
Okay. Well, he can learn from Mark Webber, who's his manager.
Yeah, who eventually left.
Who knows? Maybe Oscar taps into his Italian heritage and
Comes to Ferrari.
flies over in Maranello.
Yeah, gonna have 5 cars next year, right? Kimi, you know, we need to keep. Ferrari needs to keep Lewis, because I mean Lewis will eventually do well. Charles is a great driver. Let's get Oscar. Kimi, of course, you know, in Italian. And why don't we bring back Sainz? 5 cars next year.
Oh, so you're leaving out Max? No car for
Well,
Max?
you know,
Sounds good.
6 cars.
6 cars. Okay, so Singapore, pretty eventful. Max Verstappen again ahead of the McLaren, so he cuts back just a bit more on the leads. If I'm not mistaken, Oscar is still in the lead of the, but it's slowly
having cold feet.
diminishing. And another very bad weekend for McLaren, especially for Oscar, was the United States Grand Prix.
In Austin, Texas, one of my
Texas.
favorite tracks. Yes,
Kota,
Kota.
who, unlike Monza, their organization,
Has restrooms.
their organization is
So this is-
spectacular.
Exactly. There's a great organization. You know, parking still an issue, I think. But they got restrooms at least.
And we finally have a sprint race
Yeah.
that actually has something happening in it that matters somewhat in the championship. And we have Oscar crashing into Lando at the first turn.
Yeah.
And so, you know, lucky for them, it's only 8 points.
It's papaya time.
It's only 8 points, but it's still, you know, that also brings up the tension in the team. Now, Oscar, who before this weekend said that, you know, he had a bit of credit with the team because of what happened in Singapore, he loses everything in the first turn of the sprint
Yeah,
race.
I mean nobody owns anything in anybody in Formula One. That's Oscar is still young, still has to learn a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. And so Oscar also has a somewhat bad qualifying. He's not up front. Max takes the win. Lando P2, another Charles podium.
Yeah, I mean Charles is good. The car is not,
Yeah.
but Charles does whatever he can.
And I don't know if you remember that beautiful defense that he put up for like 3 laps.
I
Lando.
insist. You know, Charles Leclerc is one of the most underrated drivers in today's Formula One.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he was well considered because he came to Ferrari very young. But after 6 seasons there, 7 seasons, which sounds like forever, you know, I don't think he's being appreciated for the good drive, for the excellent driver that he is.
Yeah. Well, let's hope next year he can show a lot of things.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Because after Coda, we go to Ciudad de
Mexico.
Autódromo Hermanos Rodríguez.
The 2 drivers, both of them killed, one in the early 60s and one in the very early 70s.
Yeah, and they...
Pedro y Ricardo.
Very nice Spanish. Lando wins. I don't know if you remember the chaos at the start.
Oh yeah, that was
Max cutting out.
that was incredible. Well, but wait,
Going rally.
that which reminds me what happened in Zandvoort.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about Charles Leclerc. You know, when Charles would actually went into the gravel,
Oh,
and for some reason, which I appreciate, because I always say that, in today's Formula One, we would never have had something like Dijon 1979. You know, Villeneuve and Arnoux would have been disqualified for the remaining races of the year, which is something that first, was Leclerc
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
in trying to overtake
Russell.
in Zandvoort, but for some reason that was not punished. I love that. I mean, I'm happy that it was not punished, not only because he's a Ferrari guy, but also because for the sake of of the show. But some of the same things happen here, you know, with cars flying out and cutting in, and the only one who I think was penalized was Lewis.
Yeah.
Definitely not this season. That was a big chaos, but in the end, we got
Lando P1, Charles P2, holding up to P2.
yeah.
This time with the help of a bit of a misorganization by the FIA, by the
That's
stewards,
by
who
the
put
stewards,
the
yeah.
virtual safety car for some reason.
Yeah.
In a part of the track where no car was. Carlos had just retired, but he wasn't nowhere in the position of causing any possible
Yeah.
problems. So lucky for Charles.
Lucky for
P2,
Charles. He's been so
and lucky for us.
unlucky this year.
Yes, and another great performance by a rookie. This time, Ollie Berman.
Bremer's a
P4.
good guy. He's a good driver. He's a fast driver. He doesn't talk much. I think he's going to have a very bright future. Another Ferrari guy, by the way.
Yes.
7 car, okay.
7 cars.
There'll be 7 Ferraris next year.
Well, if Ferrari just buys Haas, that's 2 more already.
That's right.
And Ollie's already there.
Yeah, you could get Michael Andretti to drive.
I'm sure he would do great.
Oh, he
I'm
would
sure
love to.
he would do great. And so Lando P1, Oscar P5.
Yeah, that's
Again.
when it starts losing ground.
Can't even, minimize the damage because he loses 2 points, which are not a lot, but they count toward, at the end of the season, everything counts. 2 points to the Haas, and so P5, Antonelli P6, Russell
If you
P7.
think about it, like in a season with 24 races with 25 points per win, in the end, only 2-3 points did make the difference.
Yeah.
Which on one side is actually great if you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of paradoxical.
And very important to note is that after this Mexican Grand Prix, Lando takes the lead of the championship.
Takes the lead back, yes.
1 point lead out of Mexico. He'll never give it back.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job, Lando.
Good job, Lando.
And then moving on, we stay down in the Americas and we go to Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Brazil.
You
Yeah.
like Brazil?
I like Brazil. I like the Brazilian Grand Prix in Rio de Janeiro, in Interlagos, which Interlagos as well used to be twice as long, by the way. They were actually going around the lake. Interlagos, around the lakes.
Yeah.
Now they only stay on one side of the lake.
Yeah.
But it's one of my favorite tracks, yes, because it's actually also very challenging, especially the first part, and it's very easy to memorize. It's always good chances, and there is long, endless straight, which actually is not a straight at the beginning because that's a turn. And it's always home to very nice racings.
Yeah. And lately, we also seen a lot of wet racing.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was a reason why. There was a reason why the Brazilian Grand Prix was raced in January, which is like their July. If you move it to November, it rains. Yes.
Yeah.
Not a smart choice
Another
in terms of weather.
another sprint race weekend, and another crash for Oscar.
Yeah, this was not Oscars. The last part of the second part of actually the last third of the season for Oscar was really shameful.
But you could argue that's the third that matters the most.
When you get to that point, yes.
Yeah. And Lando takes full advantage of it. P1 for him. Max only gets up to a P3 because we have a beautiful P2 for Kimi Antonelli.
Kimi, this is Kimi's best results. Think about it. If they switch positions, Max will be world champion.
Yeah.
By the way, it's one again. It's one of those. There's so many variables this year. Something had gone a different way. Just one of the many things. We would have a different world champion today. But Antonelli was a great race.
Yeah.
Too bad it was not. He did not make. But he had a great comeback because he started really strong. Had a pretty low middle of the season. Again, Toto was really good in staying behind him, and then he came back and he had this great result, which is so far the best result of his very young career.
But that's also what that's the best situation you can be in as a rookie. You're part of a great organization like Mercedes. You have a competitive car, so you can have these results. And obviously, we know Kimi's talent, but Toto is not going around saying this guy is world champion this year. He's gonna fight for wins, whatever. He's stated from the beginning. He has to learn, he has to adapt. It's a full year of learning with no pressure.
But I said it before.
In an environment like Mercedes.
I said it before. This is one of the things that make Toto Wolff a great team manager.
Yeah.
Because he's able to keep pressure off his drivers.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. I mean, there's a bunch of so-called, self-proclaimed phenomenons in Formula One, and Toto is hard works, very disciplined, and he protects the drivers. Yeah. And this is kind of result that you eventually get.
Yeah. Not to mention the pole position. Yes, it was a spring race.
Hey, think about when Russell came to Mercedes a number of years ago with, the big and omnipotent Lewis there. And yet Russell was able to get his share of space.
Yeah. And at the same time, Russell did, however, do 2 or 3 years in a Williams. So he was a bit removed from the Mercedes environment.
Yeah.
But they put Kimi straight in.
Yeah.
That's, a steeper learning curve, but still...
He's a very cold-blooded young man.
Yeah, because also in this race, the final 4 or 5 laps, he was holding back Max. So that was...
Yeah, of all people.
that was quite interesting. Oscar ends up P5 again.
That's by World Championship.
Yeah, basically. The attention right now is only, at this point, is only Max versus Lando.
Yeah, I mean, by now we all knew that Oscar was out of the picture.
Yeah, looking at his recent form as well. And then going to one of
my least favorite Grand Prix, the Grand Prix of Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas Grand Prix.
Which, don't get me wrong, it's a great place. And actually the scenery was great because all this, lights and all this, Times Square, in the background is great. I just don't think it makes any sense to race in Las Vegas. And also it does not make any sense to race at the time of night that they race.
On Saturday.
Yeah, this is by the way, that's a different story that we will not get in now. But what I'm saying, but again, this is a demonstration of how little consideration drivers today have in Formula One. In the old days, try to impose to Niki Lauda or Emerson Fittipaldi or Ayrton Senna, probably even to Michael Schumacher, that you have to race at 11 o'clock in the evening. It's crazy. It's crazy. And by the way, it's not safe.
Yeah, they do have a lot of runoff areas, but only at the end of the straights, but then the walls are so close. And
no, what I'm saying is it's the biological cycle in a human being, 11 in the evening, you go to the movies or you go to bed. You don't race Formula Ones, period.
Well, they did this time around, and Max won.
Yeah.
And, McLaren's, they had a good race, but they went on the podium. And then a few hours later...
they were disqualified. Again, things happen.
Things happen. Double disqualification.
But, I mean, there have been disqualifications all since the beginning of Formula One and probably even before that. So, but it was a big thing for, the show. Because,
for the championship.
It reduced the gap.
Yeah.
And at this point, I really thought that Max was going to get the championship.
With 2 races left Max had a 42-point deficit,
Yeah,
and Oscar 30.
yeah.
So, obviously with 50 points available,
Yeah,
It was
only Max Verstappen could keep this championship with these premises
yeah,
open until the very end.
yeah. And also props to the Red Bull team who actually
And of course.
listened to the four-time world champion and follow his direction in developing the car. And
Well, it's easier when
Doing
you are
all
Max Verstappen. It's always like you don't know who's helping who, but if you're Max Verstappen and the team revolves around them, I mean, let's face it. Max was able to send two people out from the team. Chris and then Helmut. So what I'm saying is, this guy is certainly heard, people listen to him.
yeah, P1 for Max, P2 for George, and P3 for Kimi.
Yeah.
Another podium for Kimi, 2 in a row. Molto bello. Charles P4 and then Carlos P5. Again, the
Carlos
Williams
again,
up there.
Yeah.
And then, to be honest, nothing more of notice from this race. in my
Now we
opinion.
move on to the next to last, right?
The next to last.
Finally, 24 races.
Well, hold on a second, because we have another sprint race here in Qatar.
Yeah. I hate sprint races.
Yeah, so let's skip this one. We'll focus on the Grand Prix.
Yeah, okay, that's right.
Max wins the Grand Prix. Oscar P2 and another podium, Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, of course.
Two
Even though the big news is Max won and Lando was out
Yeah,
of the podium.
but it still counts for something. Second podium for Williams this year. Second podium for Carlos, who I think must be a bit happy comparing himself to his season to the season that Lewis had.
It's only human. I mean, like, he was sacrificed on the altar of Lewis. And I mean, there was no reason in the world why Ferrari should have done away with Carlos Sainz last year. So it's only human to think that Carlos may have, looked at least with one eye to what Ferrari and Lewis did this year. And the result is that Lewis never went to podium, and with a Ferrari, and Carlos with a Williams went twice.
Yeah,
Remarkable.
very much so. And then Lando P4. So, still points on the board.
Yeah.
That's always important.
Still one race to go.
Kimi 5th, George 6th, and then our Ferraris are 8th with Charles and P12 with
Yeah, very disappointing race for Ferrari in Ferrari's largest market.
Yeah. Season finale, Abu Dhabi.
Abu
Grand Prix.
Dhabi.
Race, as you said, number 24. Ain't that something?
It's something, it's too much. Think about it, it's like racing one, it's like half of the weekends that are in the year.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So before we go into the race, and obviously those who follow F1 know how it ended, but what were your feelings before the race? Do you think Max could have done it?
Yes, I certainly thought that he could have done it. Not to take anything away from the fact because he didn't make it, but he had momentum. And he had nothing to lose because he had already been world champion 4 times, and he had the experience.
And he had the experience of a title decider last race.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, and I'm not even saying that he's probably the best driver of the 3 of them. I'm just saying that he had everything. He had nothing to lose, so to speak. And I'm sure he was not happy to lose the world championship to Lando, but he was probably the one that had most certainties getting into the race. I still think McLaren should have actually tricked Red Bull and Max by devising a wrong strategy for Lando and bringing Oscar to the World Championship, which is, I still think, this is what Red Bull did in 2010. They tricked Ferrari into the strategy with tailor-made around Webber, and then they brought Vettel, who was actually 3rd, to the World Championship.
Yeah.
But there was no need to do this. And besides, Papaya rules will never have let you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Max wins the race, Oscar P2. Lando has a third place, but I'm sure he didn't care because he is world champion.
You know, he deserved to be. I mean, like, you know, all three of them. I mean, I could say, I could have said good things for all three of them. In the end, I was actually in favor of Max Verstappen because I would have loved the story of the guy who this year, despite the four world championship, was certainly the underdog. I would have loved Oscar because he was so young and he would have, subverted basically all the rules within McLaren. But in the end, I think that Lando won it. He had a very good season. He had very good season, ever since he came to Formula One a few years ago. So I think the only thing I'm saying is please do not compare Lando Norris to James Hunt. The two things could not be further apart, the two drivers, because I heard that as well. The only thing they have in common is they're both British.
And McLaren world champion.
And McLaren were champions. This is not to take anything away from Lando, but James Hunt was something different.
Something different. Who won a championship 50 years ago
50 years ago,
in 1976.
1976.
We should do an episode on that.
I think we should, because I remember every detail of that, because I lived through it. I mean, this 1976 is, I was very young, and I loved Formula One, and I watched like every race. And unfortunately, they did not have the coverage, the great TV coverage and media coverage I have today. But the little that we could get to see was so awesome. And anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. We'll have a few upcoming episodes here on Tifosi Confidential. We'll do our driver ratings and scorecard, report cards.
Yeah. Oh, and let's not forget, we need to do the Ferrari report card. We need to do one about Ferrari, just Ferrari, because there was a lot of anticipation for 2025 and, of course, a lot of disappointment.
That might be a colossal episode of Tifosi Confidential.
Yeah, we'll do one. I think
2 or 3 hours.
No, not that long, but we'll do one, yes.
Sounds good, sounds good. Well, from everybody here at Tifosi Confidential, this was the year in review.
Part two
of the 2025 championship. We'll take a nice winter break of approximately a week.
Yeah.
And then we'll be back with more episodes on racing, Formula One, and everything that involves around it.
Thank you.
Enjoy.